So I think we're on a setting where if your camera's not on, we don't see you. It's the same setting we had last night for the city council meeting. So just a heads up for those of you who are not seeing the typical images.
Thank you.
I do see Diane and Jennifer, and their cameras aren't on.
Oh, I'm only seeing the three, Richard, Aaron, and Trevor. I mean, I can see on the side that there are 7 participants, but I only see the 3 images.
But could it be a view setting somehow, Anton, maybe?
Yeah, it's something I hadn't anticipated. I set it up and it was recording, and I stepped out and came back, and I just kept not seeing anybody. So now I'm going to troubleshoot this. I just didn't want it to hold up the meeting.
I feel like I've had something similar where it was a setting for my view or how I was something in my meeting settings, but that's about all the help I can offer.
But we still need 2 more commissioners here. So we have a little bit of time.
Okay.
Trevor, I assume everyone is supposed to be here?
As far as I know.
Okay.
Hey, Anton, you still there?
Yes.
If I go into meeting settings on mine, under meetings, there's one for showing non-video participants, and I have that turned on. I wonder if that might bring them up for you.
Oh, okay. Up under meetings.
That's where it happens to be on my iPad. I'm sure it'll be different for a computer.
I don't see that.
You're on a computer, Anton, right?
Yes. Yeah, I'm on the laptop.
Let me ask Jennifer if she has that on hers.
Okay.
I'm not finding it on her laptop, Anton, but what I can tell you is that on her laptop, her city laptop, she also has, she can see, herself, access Humboldt, yourself when your screen isn't on. So there's got to be some setting somewhere buried.
Okay. Yeah. As long as everyone can see everyone that's participating in the meeting, then I think we're good.
We do have a quorum, but 1 more minute, see if we get 2 more commissioners to sign in.
So, Richard, that studio control is the TV access that's on our screen?
Yeah, access Humboldt. Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
That's the folks who record it so that people can watch it later.
You're going to watch it later?
Sure.
So, Anton, did there
Yes.
response from Tom? And what's the other guy's name? Justin?
What? I couldn't understand what you said.
What's our new guy's name?
Ross in Public Works, or who?
No, the other planning commissioner.
Tristan?
Oh, Tristan. I called him Justin. I've been around to Justin all weekend, so. So, Trevor, did you email everybody about the meeting? Or is that Anton's job?
No, I emailed it with the agenda, right? I believe so.
The link, that's how I got to this, yeah.
Because 2 months in a row I didn't get it, but maybe you didn't put me on the list this time because you knew I was going to be out of town.
Let's see. Maybe I didn't include your Gmail. Do you check your Trinidad email?
No, my husband wiped all my email off my iPad, so I have to use his computer until I get my new iPad and the Gmail set up. I don't use the government one. I don't have time to do that. So I just have always gotten it on my personal email. But, I talked to Anton this morning and said, for 2 months. But I did get him to get it, when I was out of town last month. But I don't want to operate on the computer because I can't have my notes if I don't have a paper copy.
Well,
it would be nice. Yeah, I didn't CC your personal email. It would be nice maybe to set up some way where your city email gets forwarded to your personal email. Like, if the public asks for your contact information, I don't want to give them your personal email.
Okay.
well, you
All
could just make
I'll work
sure.
that out. I'll work that out with Anton.
Yeah, and make sure that you're on Gabe's distribution list because he sends out notices for all meetings.
Yeah, I get the
usually
meeting
Friday.
notices. Yeah, I get those.
Well, that's basically all you really need. Just a tickler to tell you when the meeting is. So
Yeah, I didn't get the last one though from Gabe.
okay,
So I better have a chat with him
just
too.
make sure that you're on distribution on
Yeah.
that distribution list. Well,
Thank you, Richard.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and start, and hopefully we'll get the other two commissioners on fairly soon. Okay. So I'll call this meeting to order. This is the regularly planned meeting of the Trinidad Planning Commission for Wednesday, June 15th, 2022. First item on the agenda is a roll call.
Commissioner Johnson,
Here.
Commissioner Stockness,
Present.
Commissioner Heikkinen,
Here.
and Commissioner Hopkins and Commissioner Cole appear to be missing.
Okay, thank you. The next item on the agenda is approval of minutes. We have one set of minutes to approve, and that's from last month, May 18, 2022. Anyone have any comments, corrections, questions on the minutes? All right, hearing none. Let's see here. I did have just one question, and this will probably come up a little bit later, but I was just curious, Trevor, on page 7 of 9, there was an action that you were going to send the CDP procedures to the Coastal Commission for their input. I just want to confirm that that has been done, and have you received any comments back?
No, I haven't. I need to put a whole little package together for them.
Okay.
And I haven't had a chance to do that. And I would not expect comments back from them right away, but I will definitely keep you posted because that's going to include a new draft of the ADU ordinance too that addresses their comments.
Okay. Thank you. I didn't have any comments either. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second? I'll second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Minutes are approved unanimously. Thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda is, bear with me, I'm just checking my phone just to make sure that somebody's not calling in. So, no, okay. So the next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. And we have basically two items tonight for discussion. It's the design review standard, excuse me, and the general plan update for the circulation element. You didn't move to get off easy tonight, I see.
Right.
So,
Yeah, I saw that.
yeah.
I moved to approve the posted June 10th agenda as published.
Move. Do
I'll
you have a
second
second?
it.
Move and second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Agenda is approved.
Aye. Okay.
Next item is items from the floor. This is an opportunity for anyone from the public to address the commission on any item or subject other than items which are on our agenda this evening. And I will just confirm with everyone, I do not see anyone from the public.
Nor do I.
So no comments from the floor. We'll move right on to our first agenda item, which is the design review standards. And Trevor, I'll let you take it away.
Sure. So I revised the design guidelines based on the discussion at the last meeting. There's still a few notes in there. Some are for myself or for Coastal Commission comments. There's a few for the Planning Commission to provide input on. We can go over those as we go through these. And then I updated the definitions. So the primary change was to add definitions related to OWTS. So while working on the Coastal Commission comments, the ADU ordinance, the definitions, and the exemptions, exclusions, and administrative permit procedures, I sort of picked out these definitions to try and use these terms consistently through those regulations. So the key difference is going to be an improvement versus a modification. And so modifications are things that bring a system up to current standards, but don't increase the capacity of the system, where an improvement would increase the capacity of the system. I did also include non-standard systems in that definition, and that was based on what I saw in an example from Mendocino County. And then I added improvements as a possible CDP administrative permit. So if someone is putting in a non-standard system or just adding a leach line or something, that could be an administrative permit potentially if it meets the caveats for that. And then I included OWTS modifications in the exclusions. And I think that would work well with the ADU ordinance, and it would allow systems to be brought up to code under an exclusion, and then we could still issue ministerial permits for ADUs. So that's those definitions. And then I did have a comment on the vegetation removal. So I updated the major vegetation removal definition to match what we have in the exclusions. I didn't include all the exceptions in there because I think those are best left in the regulations. But one thing that I thought about was the definition of vegetation removal, and it seems to be the current definition focuses on things that will kill vegetation, which I think is an important component of the definition. But some of you might remember when we had to do a permit for vegetation maintenance on Trinidad Head, and the Coastal Commission had determined that, trimming more than an inch or so of vegetation was major vegetation removal. So I believe, according to the Coastal Commission, vegetation removal includes some level of trimming as well. So if anybody has any suggestions or thoughts on that, otherwise, we can wait and see what Coastal Commission staff have to say about it. And I think that's it for this item.
Okay, thank you. I think, just based on where we've been with this over the last couple of months, we're pretty close to just saying it's ready for prime time. But I guess probably the easiest thing, since you did say that there were a couple of questions, and I know that there might be some comments or issues as we go through it, perhaps the easiest thing is, as we have done before, just to go through page by page. And if any commissioners have a question or a comment, just stop me and we will, take time to answer the questions. Apologize for that band of light. I can't quite get rid of it here in my office. Sorry. Okay, so we'll just plow through here. Page 1. Any comments or questions on page 1? Page 2. Page 3.
I had something for page 3 and 4, just kind of maybe an opportunity to collapse a little bit more, combining elements D and H, architectural styles and architectural features and facades seemed to me like a natural opportunity to take a whole section out and just combine the two. And then with that, D2, the avoid revivalist architecture, ... D1, we talked about contemporary uncommon styles. So I didn't know if perhaps we were adding on to D2, avoid revivalist architecture and uncommon styles that are incompatible and do not complement, and then kind of take the language from D1 and finish that sentence, if that makes sense. That way we give an example of something that we're not totally excited about, and then kind of some guiding things. Because, to begin listing ultra-modern, who's to say what that definition is. That was kind of my thought there on page 3.
Yeah, good comment. I would agree with combining H and D. Makes sense. I think that can be done. Anything else on either 2 or 3? Moving on to 4.
I did want to, so how you describe Trinidad. So previously we'd taken all descriptions out.
Where are you, Trevor? Sorry.
On page 3 still.
Yeah.
So my comment TP4
Right.
there.
There we go. Thank you. Okay.
The current language is rural, uncrowded, rustic, unsophisticated, small, casual, open character of the community. We've talked about sort of small town. I added small scale. So I am looking for some additional input on any descriptors you want to include for that.
Aaron?
I think we could spend hours and days and meetings on this descriptor. I think kind of maybe a less is more approach, in keeping with Trinidad's character or something like that, and then recognizing that that's going to be open to interpretation of the commission when that comes up, if something's butting up against that. I don't know if that's too vague, but I just kind of striking that balance.
Diane?
And so, Trevor, I don't think we need the word scale, just small town character. Okay.
And do you want to keep small or just leave it general? The town
Small
character?
town. Small town, I mean, or rural because it's busy now. I just think small, I don't think small scale because it spreads out, North and West Haven and Moonstone. So I think just small town character. There's still a lot of people that don't know where it is, and I'm not telling them.
I tend to agree with both comments. I think I thought small scale was a little awkward, so I would be fine with small town character. I think that captures the essence of what the message is. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Anything else on page 3? Page 4, you asked us 2 questions. And I think the first comment at the top TP5 was, is this the right spot for this? And it refers to the previous page, E2. Structures visible from the beach or public trail in an open space area should be sited and designed to be as visually unobtrusive as possible. I guess my comment was, or my thought was that, no, this is probably not the right place for that, but that's my comment. If anybody else has any.
I had the same comment. I thought that might make more sense under site planning, since that seems to be how that would be mitigated.
And what is it? The state park has a lot to do with the trail and what kind of views anybody can get from it. And it is obtrusive in a lot of spots. Okay, that's all I wanted to say on that. On TPS 5.
Yeah, I think it would be reasonable to put it under site planning. I think the only other section it could really go under would be views. But it's not views. It's a different take on views. It's views of the structure. Do we
I'm
like
fine with putting it in site planning.
Okay.
Yeah. You also asked under TP7, should this be in here or under E? And that was use architectural features to help blend. And we've already discussed that one. So combining those, as we had suggested earlier, makes sense to me.
I think I see where your question is, though, Trevor. Also, structures apparent in bulk. You're kind of asking, is this more appropriate under the bulk section E?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, no. 6 of one, half dozen of the other, kind of. I mean, they all intertwine. I don't feel strongly one way or the other on that one, I guess.
Maybe it'll become more clear when I combine D and H. It might flush out.
Yeah. And then backing up just to TP6, I just wanted to comment. I like that term, key viewing points. I think that kind of conveys the concept without too much specificity. I just wanted to kind of offer you feedback on that. I know you said you talked about doing it, but key viewing points, I think, then we can kind of take that whatever direction it needs to go.
Where are you talking about, Aaron?
That was back on page 4. It was just a comment. TP6, just a comment from Trevor more than a question.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And I like.
Well, I'm not done with 4. I haven't commented. I've got some comments.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. So under F1, permitted development, including landscaping, shall be sited and designed to protect views to along the. Okay. I think it should be permitted development, including landscaping and trees, because landscaping does have some trees, but not to the extent that we're dealing with now in town. So I'm going to beat this issue to death because it is a big, big issue.
So Howard,
I just want to say permitted development, including landscaping and trees, shall be sited and designed to protect views to the ocean and along the shoreline and scenic coastal areas, with the rest of the sentence.
so how are trees not included in landscaping?
Well, we have to put a height on them. If we're going to do a diameter of 12 inches or 20 inches or 6,000 square feet of landscaping or trees, we need to add the height. We've got the height of fences, retaining walls, bushes, hedges, and this town is loaded with trees that are too tall. And I've seen that because I've been here for 46 years. And I have view rights because I was here before 78. But I can't do a thing about it. I can try and ask them to be a good neighbor, and they've just ignored it. And it's not just me. So somehow we need to put trees in there so that they get the idea. I mean, PG&E's getting sued all over the state because people's trees fall on their lines. And they don't have vegetation maintenance rules. But we've got rules for septic tanks, fences, hedges, porches, fences. Okay, so I'm just telling you that this is an issue. And in number 2, prohibits...
Before we move on, so a couple of things. You do have a recourse. You do have the Views and Vegetation Ordinance, which prohibits trees from blocking views. But I think, a height limit is probably not the answer. I know it's the easiest solution, but a couple of things. One, trees can add to a view if you can see through them or under them. And then also you think about areas on Berry Road. You can't put a height limit on the redwood forest up there.
But you can in town. You can put a height limit.
You can, Diane. I would respectfully disagree, Diane. I don't want to walk through a town where there's not a single tree over.
No, I'm not saying take the trees out, but the tree that.
But you're suggesting a height limit in town, and that's that's a whole separate discussion for the landscape ordinance and that kind of stuff. But I definitely hear and appreciate your frustration, but I don't think a blanket.
And nothing can be done. Absolutely nothing has been done about it. Because I tried 15 years ago to come to the Planning Commission and talk about it so I can spend $10,000 to try to convince my neighbors, or my other neighbor could spend $10,000 to, respect that. People are moving in and out. They've got a lot of money. They're not even here half the time. They're not doing the vegetation maintenance. And you can be a good neighbor. I gave you that article, two planning commissions ago. We just have to say something and not just wait for the ordinance. It needs to be spelled out, and it doesn't have to be detailed, but it needs to say prohibit structures, including fences, walls, signs, and landscaping, and trees from blocking views of the harbor and nearby residential and commercial structures. Otherwise, nothing gets done. Well, we have a tree in our view that's taller than a skyscraper. And there's 3 trees. And like those, what are they? The cherry trees were planted, and they're all coming down because they're in the view of traffic.
So, I mean, you could, in the existing ordinance, you could bring the view blockage through the views and vegetation ordinance. Now, it's, people who own trees. So people who have views have rights, but people who own trees also have rights. Trees provide privacy, they provide shade, they provide wind blocking. And that's the views and vegetation ordinance tries to balance those different viewpoints. So I think it's, it's not just a blanket. Plus, we have natural trees, you have natural habitat. That's another issue. So I mean, like Aaron said, we could talk more about it with the landscape ordinance, but I don't think a blanket height limit is the way to go.
Let me just interject real quickly. Let the record show that Commissioner Cole has joined us. Thank you, Tristan.
Hey, sorry I'm late. Thank you, guys.
The other thing that I would also add in is that, we encourage native plant landscaping. And as part of that, and if you include trees in that, and when you think about what are the native trees in this area, they're going to be trees that may not be conducive to being a certain height. And so I completely understand your concern, Diane. I lived in an area in Trinidad when we first moved up here that I didn't see anything after 2:00 because I was totally blocked by trees. But at the same time, I also feel that just putting a arbitrary height limitation on trees is maybe not the right way to go. I do believe, though, that we can probably work on that and come up with some sort of solution that integrates with the views and vegetation ordinance as part of the landscaping ordinance. And we can, get into it in more detail and see if we can figure out a best way to come up with a compromise on it.
And there might be certain areas of town where you put more limits on heights or species. But I think that, this is more general and applies to the citywide. So I think we need to look at it, in a little bit more detail than what these guidelines are getting at.
Okay, so Cheryl, we talked about it maybe 6 months ago about getting the city council and the planning commission to do a walk so we can look at the landscaping and the residential and the commercial views, because some of us have been here forever and we don't have any rights as far as landscaping. And then anybody can move in and do whatever they want, plant the trees as high as they want. And they didn't prune the tree at the school either. So
it's on their list, Diana. I mean, I had direct conversations and they know they have a lot on their plate and they can't do everything at once, just like any one of us.
That's a really good excuse for everybody. Everybody uses it. I've got a lot to do. I can't get to all of it. So I don't know. Several of us asked for that to be done. You can see the sign, though. It does look good. The school sign.
Welcome back, Trevor.
Thanks. Yeah, I don't know. The whole thing just disappeared there for a second. So Diane, why don't... Huh? Did you solve everything while I was gone?
Completely solved.
So Diane, maybe we should get together and talk about, what you would need to do to put together an application under the views and vegetation ordinance. Because it has worked.
Okay. Well, there's lots of neighbors involved.
That makes it, I think all the more convincing and, a little easier to split the responsibilities.
Yeah, I mean, the neighbors that I need to get them to do what they need to do aren't here often. They live in other places. And their landscape guys just, you're going to have to email them or talk to them, but I will get together because I want to get this situated, before too long. Thank you.
Thank you. Good comments. Just to bring Commissioner Cole up to speed, we're just walking through page by page as we have done before on the draft design review criteria and procedures, and we're on page 4. And
D and H.
Oh, sorry, D and H.
Yeah.
D and H, yeah.
Yeah.
And then just using revivalist architecture as an example of an uncommon style, so as opposed to having its own bullet. So I think that probably addresses your comment.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
all right. Anything else on page 4? Moving on to page 5.
I had a couple items. J3, variations in color texture. Avoid the use of building materials and colors which are highly reflective and contrasting. We have a few examples in town of front doors that have that pop of color and things like that. I wanted to make sure that this wouldn't interfere with that, because I think that's a nice look. There's a home that's done that, and in the interest of disclosure, I'm contemplating that as well. And then M1, or the section M, I was thinking we could eliminate section or point number 2, and under point 1 be the number and sign of size shall be limited to the lowest number possible except for necessary public safety and directional signage, and then somehow incorporate also the intent be the minimum necessary to convey critical information. Just kind of clean that up into one concept. Those are the 2 comments I had on page 5.
Could you repeat which numbers?
Absolutely.
Under signs.
So signs, I was proposing eliminating 3. Signage shall be the minimum necessary to convey critical information, and incorporating that into number 1. And then number 1, so kind of it would be read something similar to the number and size of signs shall be limited to, then add in lowest number possible, except for, lowest number possible necessary to convey critical information, except for necessary public, just kind of streamline that.
Got it.
I agree with that.
Okay, anything else on page 5? Page 6. Sorry, I got my fingers messed up here. Page 6.
I like the term fugitive dust. I want to try and use that.
It is a thing. It's actually regulated in Humboldt County.
Is it really?
Yeah. Because that's the one air quality standard that the county is out of compliance with at times is PM10, so the small particulates, and that fugitive dust is a big part of that.
All right.
Anything else on page 6? Page 7. Okay, moving on to definitions. And Trevor's walked us through the major changes in some of those, but anything on page 1? 2?
Differentiates. I think for this, we can leave it general. We are going to have to navigate that question of how do we deal with public versus private views with the Coastal Commission.
Because we protect them here, right? Both, yeah.
Okay, anything else on 2? Page 2, definitions. Page 3 of definitions. Page 4. Page 5. Page 6.
So back to page 3 under emergency shelter. Back to page 3 under emergency shelter. Do we have a number for that? Trevor, I thought we had 12 at one time.
What do you mean by a number, Diane?
Well, how many people could be in the emergency shelter?
That would be driven by what the emergency shelter is and the capacity of it, I would think. Be it, town hall or the school.
So
I believe, so we did, that's probably not even a draft anymore because we processed an amendment to allow emergency shelters. So I think this definition is now adopted. But I believe that the regulations themselves put stipulations. So like less than 10, I want to say it's less than 10 beds. You can have.
I would think it was 12 that we.
It might be 12. So if you're less than that number, you can put one in by right. If it's more than that number, you need a use permit, I believe.
Okay.
Anything on page, let's see, I think we left off at page 5. I'm sorry, page 7. And please stop me if I go too fast. These are the major changes to the OWTS definitions.
So page 7, I had a question under OTWS improvement. Why is it specified out to accommodate new development? Why is that line necessary in there? Does that help keep it separate from an OWTS modification? Is that what that's doing? Because let's say, I do an improvement on my home and it increases the capacity of my system, but I'm not accommodating new development. Where is that going to fall? Is it still an improvement? That was kind of where my thought was on that.
Sure, that probably doesn't need to be in there. I think if someone might want to expand their system, like I think I have had a situation where someone wanted to bring their system up to code, but while they were at it, they also wanted to expand it in case they want to do some future development.
Right.
So yeah, I don't think that needs to be in there.
Okay. And then I just had a question under modification, kind of more an observation, the conflict between, the definition at the beginning, the second line, replacement repair will not increase septic capacity beyond the existing. And then under the subsection, you have the fourth one in the first A, increasing septic tank capacity. I don't know, those two just kind of seemed inherently in conflict within the same definition, because one says will not increase and one talks about increasing.
So the key difference there is that it's not increasing capacity beyond the existing permitted development. So there's a lot of undersized tanks in town. So it's, maybe an 800-gallon tank, for example, is pretty common back in the day.
Tank capacity versus system capacity. So another bedroom versus, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay, moving on to page 8. All right, page 9. Page 10.
Wait a minute. On page 8, under residential accessory use or structure, yeah, we wouldn't put ADUs, Trevor, in that list.
No, I don't think so, because these are all structures that don't increase the intensity of the use.
Okay. Okay.
Back to page 10.
I want to go back to 9. Go ahead, Aaron.
Oh, no, go ahead with 9. Let's stay.
I just want to read short-term rental. Okay. I just want to read the definition. Short-term rental means a rental of any dwelling in whole or in part within the city of Trinidad to any persons for transient use other than 1, a permitted bed and breakfast, 2, ongoing month-to-month tenancy granted to the same renter for the same dwelling, 1, less than 30-day rental per year, and a house exchange for which there is no payment. So is that correct, Trevor?
That is what's in the STR ordinance currently.
That has been thoroughly gone through several times.
I know. It was just the last one, the house exchange, which was kind of bothering me. I don't know. I just didn't remember that in the STR. Okay.
I think, I don't know. I don't remember if there was anybody who actually does it, but there are these sites where you can,
Exchange.
Go travel somewhere and switch houses. And so that is a thing. And so that's what that's getting at.
Okay.
It's a good spot. What's next with it? When does it come back to us?
I was just thinking about that. I think I think the next step would be to talk to Coastal Commission staff about dealing with the public versus private views. I think this is actually one, a lot of the amendments we've been working on, I'm finding are not going to be able to be standalone amendments because they refer to sections of the zoning ordinance that either don't exist yet or need to be updated. And the Coastal Commission, for example, we tried to do an amendment that in the past that affected appeals, and the Coastal Commission came back and said, well, your appeals section is deficient, so you need to do this and this and this. And it just kind of opened a can of worms. And so I think a lot of the amendments we're working on might have to wait until we have the whole zoning ordinance updated. But I think this is one that we could be standalone. These new criteria, it fits within the existing chapter. It doesn't change any of the notification, appeal requirements, anything like that. So this is one we could potentially process as is. So the next step, I think I would talk to Coastal Commission staff, see what they say. The Planning Commission would need to make an official recommendation to the City Council on the ordinance amendment at some point, whether you want to do that now or whether you want to do that after we hear back from Coastal Commission staff. I would recommend waiting because that might result in some changes. And then the City Council could adopt it as an ordinance with 2 readings, and then it would go to the Coastal Commission for an LCP amendment.
Okay. Yeah, I'm definitely in favor of waiting and give the council something that's as finished as we can make it.
Sounds good. I will see what information I can get from Coastal Commission staff. Again, getting responses back from them right now is taking time, so I'm not necessarily going to be able to report back next month, but I will work on getting a response.
Diane?
So, Trevor, does the Coastal Commission staff come up here at all?
Oh, they have an Arcata office.
But do they come to Trinidad?
Yeah. And occasionally they'll have meetings here. And, I think the last time, so they alternate between places on the North Coast. So I think this year it's going to be in Mendocino. It's not going to be in Humboldt. But I think the last time they were up had a meeting in Arcata, they toured Trinidad and, looked at the lighthouse and some other things that were going on.
They didn't look at the vegetation and say, oh, you can only...
We've been working on responding to Coastal Commission comments. So you guys saw that last about a little over a year ago. I brought you the responses to Coastal Commission comments and the comments, and you had some additional comments, but the Planning Commission never took any formal action on the circulation element. As it's currently written, to recommend it to the City Council. So And then, things have changed from a year ago. And sometimes when you take your eyes off something for a while and you read through it again, you find more things to fix. So I picked it up again. I've been going through it. I haven't gotten all the way through it in terms of updating any new information, but I did want to give the Planning Commission another stab at it and see if you want to make an official recommendation to the city council at some point, maybe not this meeting. It's a big element, and I am going to have new figures as well. So I hope to have some new figures for you in July. So I don't expect you to take action tonight. Again, it's a big element. So I don't necessarily expect to get through it all, but just a little bit of background. The Planning Commission has recommended approval of the introduction chapter, the land use element, and then the conservation, open space, and recreation element. And to the city council seems happy with what we've done so far. I need to get these new drafts back to the Coastal Commission, but I've been waiting on the figures. As you know, that's been a bit of a roadblock, but I am starting to get new figures now. So, and I explained a couple of things that have been difficult with the figures. Just actually getting the city limits accurately mapped. So I did give you a new figure 2. And so that shows the new city limits, which we had been basing the city limits on the parcel lines. And you can see that the land actually extends quite a bit beyond those parcel lines. Most of the parcels actually extend down to the high tide line. We were going to go ahead and extend the parcels, but that's not true for 100% of them. So they have to be looked at on a case-by-case basis. So I think we have, and the harbor area has been fixed. Some of the parcel boundaries have been fixed. So, and the shoreline limit is based on the mean high tide elevation. So that's been fixed up. And I have figures for the land use element, and I'm almost have all the figures for the conservation element. And then next I'm just with the parking element. I don't know if we'll include those in the general plan or not. And then I'm also talking to the city engineers about whether we need street cross sections. So it's pretty common for general plans to include sort of a typical street cross section, but there's not going to be new streets in Trinidad. So I don't know if that's really necessary unless we want to show what we want the existing streets to look like, if it's anything different than what they are now. So I'm consulting with the city engineers on that. So I'm just looking for any comments, questions, input on the circulation element itself, or the proposed or existing figures.
Okay, thank you. Lots going on there, no doubt. All right. So in continuing with our normal process here, or at least the process we've been using recently, just to walk through this page by page, and just interrupt me, or we can have a discussion on any issues as they come up. So starting with page 1, which is the basic, starts the introduction. Okay, page 2. I'll start off then. It looked to me like I'm in paragraph 3 that, and these are nits maybe, but at least I want to make sure that I'm understanding this correctly. The first sentence starts off, similarly, energy does not require its own element, and circulation issues, and included in this element as section G. If I look at the table of contents, I believe that should be section F. Likewise, the last line of that same paragraph says air quality in section H, and I believe that should be second it a little bit more general to include anything that's runs on a fossil fuel. And that occurs in a couple of places throughout the element. Any other comments on page 2? Moving on to page 3.
And just real quick, there are some formatting issues with this, and that's because I am not showing the track changes. And if I start to delete the extra spaces and things, then I start deleting some of the track changes. So that's just an artifact of the fact that you're seeing this without the markups, but they are in there.
Okay, thank you.
So, Richard, we could just change cars to vehicles, and that would include trucks. Where you were talking there.
Well, that's you can do that, of course. Yes, change it to vehicles. But my point is that some vehicles may run on gas and some vehicles may run on diesel, and or biodiesel for that matter. But anyway, the point being is that I think we just want to make sure that we're not just focused on gas powered vehicles. That's the way I interpret that issue.
Yeah. Well, that's good.
Let's see, anything on page 3? Page 4. Page 5. I had a couple of comments on page 5. On the first full paragraph there, in the middle of the paragraph, it says several committees have been formed to review and advise on important topics. I think that should be advise, SE. The other comment I would make in that same paragraph, at the end of the paragraph, they talk about the various major expenditures of the city, and certainly I think what we're trying to do is limit what they are. We talk about police protection, improving local streets, updating water supply, all that good stuff, and responding to increased state regulations. But just as we mentioned a few minutes ago, a big investment was made in stormwater infrastructure, and might be useful to include that as well. Another comment on the second to last paragraph on page 5. The last sentence reads in part, include a redesign of the intersection into a roundabout, additional stop signs, and increasing the amount of directional signage. All that is correct, but if you go back and look at some of the information which is referenced in the PSR for the Rancheria's proposed interchange, they also included traffic lights. So we might want to just make sure that we're in sync with that project study report for the proposed interchange. Anything else on page 5? Page 6.
I had a couple on page. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
In the bullet point section, issues with speeding and how to slow traffic on Trinity, Edwards. I personally would like to see View and Ocean added. Any of the collector streets that can also be used as a bypass. I'd like to see those added. And then I'm trying to understand my note here. Sorry. That's all until I figure out what my note here is about, my second one.
I have the same problem. I assume, while Aaron's looking there, that the highlighted A parking study is going to be added, or there will be some additional information there at some point?
Yeah, and so the SB2 grant was extended, which is nice because we haven't spent the money, so we can do another summer of collecting parking data. And it's, which is nice because the last year was still, COVID restrictions. And so this year's should be a little bit more normal.
And I still have data, and I found 2 last week from February. So I did a parking study in February too.
So yeah, get those to Anton or Jennifer, and they'll get them to me.
Okay.
All right, so I figured out what my additional bullet point I was thinking about adding for other traffic issues in the city. I've heard just general comments of anything that diverts traffic from kind of the main pathway down to the Head Harbor and State Beach to any of the surface streets, That's just, I've heard, and it's an ongoing issue, with people taking those alternative routes down the hill, or at least to get to the intersection down there. Does that make sense? I don't know if that's worth adding in there, if it's kind of covered elsewhere, but I know that's a concern.
So I know truck traffic is, kind of looping around. So no, I don't think I've heard that. So so tourists using alternative.
Yeah, using
routes.
Ocean and View, for example, instead of sticking to Main and West or Main and Trinity to get down. I have a front row seat to one of those two. And I've heard my neighbors on Ocean talk about the same thing, because it's kind of an easy thing just to peel off there and like, oh, Ocean, that's going to take me where I want to go, for people that aren't familiar. What the solution is, I don't know.
The solution is signs directing tourist traffic, trucks and trailers. And it was brought up in another part of our packet, and it's been brought up for years. We just have to get the signs. We've talked to Eli about them, and it's not at the top, kind of like the police.
Yeah, I agree. Signs could be a solution. I also don't want a sign forest in town either.
But we have so many people,
balance.
and
It's a balance to strike for sure.
We just need to get them down, they're on the right streets, because I've take pictures of the ones that try to make the corner of.
We have slow traffic on Trinity, Edwards, and then I asked to have View and Ocean added to that as well, Diane, and that could be one way to do it.
I wrote that in, Aaron. Okay.
I guess I'm saying that encompasses it. This is kind of like a general issue, not the solutions, but just like, hey, this is something we want to address. The solutions are elsewhere.
Yeah, well, big towns have speed bumps too. The little roads with the big towns with the little roads.
Well, I'll make my comment when we get to it, but it includes that issue. Anything else on page 6? Okay, page 7. I just had a couple of real quick comments. In the last paragraph, which talks about Highway 101 is the only paved route that connects Trinidad. A coastal trail exists, but it currently requires crossing a river and traveling by beach. And I don't know if this is a big deal or not, probably not, but if you are a pedestrian, you can, or if you're a pedestrian or a bike rider, you can use 101 as you cross the river. So that is an alternate. And I think the message there is that we have a coastal trail, but it's dangerous. So maybe we want to include the fact that part of the trail has to include using Highway 101. And then the last, second to the last sentence in that same paragraph says, reducing these vehicle miles traveled would reduce energy consumption. This is the first time that we introduce the phrase vehicle miles traveled, or commonly called VMT. So it might be useful to just make sure that that acronym is right there, because I think it might be used later on too. But that's just something that everybody now is getting accustomed to calling VMT.
Yeah, and just to that point, the legislature, the state legislature is currently considering a bill that would allow rural areas to go back to the LOS rather than the VMT, because in rural areas it's so hard to reduce the vehicle miles traveled. A place like Trinidad, that's very difficult to do. And so the LOS is a level of service, which is basically delays. It measures delays. So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, separate the traffic from the motor traffic from the other pedestrians and bicyclists. Okay, anything else on 7? Eight. I thought it was just interesting that for some of the traffic counts from 2016 actually went down from 2016 to 2020. But I think that could be just typical seasonal type stuff that probably isn't a big deal. Anything else on page 8? Okay, page 9. I had a question for clarification at the first sentence at the top of that page. It says, at the entrance to Trinidad, peak vehicle trips going east or west range from 240 to 348. I was trying to understand what east or west meant. Are those the, what streets are those?
I guess that would be West Haven and Maine, but let me check on that.
Yeah, it was just a little confusing. I wasn't exactly sure what the where that was, or not where it was, but where they were going. Okay, yeah, that's fine. Any other questions or any comments on page 9 again?
No.
Okay, page 10. I just have a general comment, and I've made this comment many times in the past, and I'll just say it again. I am scared to death of the programs, the number of programs that we have here. And for some reason, on this particular element, I feel that a lot of these programs are not necessarily programs per se, but are basically just policy statements. And the reason I say that is, we've been looking at programs in the past such that there was a finite structure to it, and there was an outcome, or there was something that would be provided by the city. And I'm not so sure that some of these items which are now programs are really programs and not just policy statements. Now,
and I don't think that I think this is a good issue, and I do think that it would be good to go through each of these, and we don't necessarily have to do them at a meeting. If one or two or all of you want to sort of take that as an assignment and look at the definitions and try and recategorize, I have done that to some degree. Putting some of these on as other initiatives that are more, inspirational kind of things, but some of them are more in the gray areas, and maybe some are unnecessary. I think we've been working on this general plan for so long, we tend to, add stuff over time, and some of it, taking a step back and taking a big picture look, is this stuff necessary? I think that would be really a beneficial exercise to go through.
So Trevor, give Eli a copy of this circulation element and ask him to go through it, or I will. Because he's the city manager and he needs to know what some of these issues are. So I wondered, excuse me, Richard, can I comment now?
Of course, absolutely.
Okay, so I think we need to do a study on truck traffic. And then, like Richard said, that intersection, where there's 7 access points, I have seen I can't tell you how many accidents, So, if we have some kind of a grant, and I mean, that's I could talk to Eli or you, Trevor, or Aaron, you can suggest it to Jennifer. But I think it's serious that we figure that out in this circulation. And then, besides intersection and the truck, and then, the energy climate stuff. Okay. I just like to see a study. I mean, I'll sit with the candy bar and count trucks.
So Diane, the city did develop a road traffic safety plan last year and adopted it in January. I can send you a copy of that, but that it definitely identifies that the entrance to town as the primary safety issue for both pedestrians and cars. And so now that the city has that plan in place, I think it's easier for them to go after Caltrans funding to do and other funding to make some improvements. So the city is taking steps on that.
And then I'll pick it up when I bring in that traffic stuff. Okay.
Before we keep going, my brain is not capable of reminding me when the city logo is next to the circulation element, that denotes what?
Yeah, no, good. And for Tristan, I think maybe I sent you an email about this, but it would be good to review the introduction chapter, sort of give you an overview of the general plan. So those are policies that are not part of the LCP, the Certified Local Coastal Program. So those are things so for the Coastal Commission, they only want policies that govern development. But general plans are usually much more than that. They also govern city actions. And there might be some missing. I think there's also some additional policies that we could mark with that. So that's what that means. So it means that it's not going to be certified by the Coastal Commission because it doesn't govern development. One question I have is, and I think this is a conversation I need to have with Coastal Commission staff, is if there are programs that are under a policy that are marked with the city symbol, does that automatically exclude the programs from the LCP, or do we need to individually mark programs as well? So that I haven't resolved yet.
Good point. Okay, moving on to page 11.
I just had a question on element 1.6. Any new lots in the city, would those be, in essence, anything that gets subdivided?
Yeah, so, there's not a lot of potential for that, but...
to get 25 feet, yeah.
Yeah, so, but it could, Berry Road, potentially Scenic Drive.
Sure.
And that's actually a current general plan policy.
Okay, thanks.
I had a question at essentially the same location. And I just want to make sure that we're consistent with reality. On Circ 1.7, private rights of way serving as access to more than one dwelling shall not restrict public access by placement of the gate or signage or other obstacles. Could you refresh my memory on how we deal with Wagner Street?
That popped into my brain too.
Yes, and this is probably, I don't know if the Coastal Commission told me to add it or, if I pulled it from somewhere else, but yeah, this is a pretty common one for Coastal Commission issues. So Wagner Street is weird. The first 40 feet or so, I forget how much, but the first portion of the street is public, and then it goes private, and then there's another section in the middle of the street that's public. And the signs that are up there saying no turnaround, no access are illegal. And, I believe that the Coastal Commission has filed some legal action against that, but it moves like molasses. Actually moves slower than it moves like cold molasses. It's
right. Well, as I said, I just want to make sure that in reality, if we include this, that we have to be willing to back it up, so to speak. So I just wanted to make that comment. Anything else on page 11?
So if we don't have an enforcement officer to back it up and the Coastal Commission isn't going to knock on the door of the person that puts up the sign, maybe Eli needs to go over there and just, check it out. I know the maintenance guys did some trail work so you could get down the trail, but it's pretty touchy. Someone needs to, keep dealing with that.
It's definitely an ongoing problem.
Oh God, I live here. I know. I'm going on Wagner tomorrow morning. I got some stuff to do for Adora. Okay.
Anything else on page 11? Page 12. Page 13.
I had an educational question about page 12, kind of, sorry, just something since I don't have the history here, but on, I guess technically it would be Edwards. I've heard anecdotally that the green zone along the eastern portion is not enforceable. That's something that wasn't done properly through the Coastal Commission, or that it limits coastal access by putting a time limit on that. Has that been adjudicated, for lack of a better term, or?
We'll cross that bridge, I guess, as they continue to comment on it.
All right, cool. Thank you for the background, Trevor.
We need a truck that says police, a white truck, police in black letters, and then Trinidad, City of Trinidad. And that guy has a ticket book, and he goes around and he writes a ticket. So Aaron, we're going to get.
What kind of truck do you want, Diane? We'll get it for you.
I don't know. I just a small truck. We saw one in Marin. It was really, whoa. It wasn't a black police car. It was like black and white. All the signage was white, but, it was definitely, okay, slow down, or what's he doing? Or, they were watching. And this has been an issue, from the STRs to visitors for years. So can we write a grant for that, Trevor?
I'm sure you could.
Enforcement?
Okay. That might be something, for Measure Z funds.
Measure Z?
That's the county safety tax, and they distribute it out to the cities.
Yeah, we 6,000, everybody else gets 60. Okay, we'll see what we can do.
Okay, moving on. Good comments. Let's see. Page 13, I guess. I'll just make a comment. It's not exactly the same thing, but if you look down at the bottom of the page under CERC 2.2, the program that's 2.2.1 is.
The land trust owns a parcel they could put a parking lot on. And the casino, there's been talk about having the Rancheria run a harbor shuttle. So, yeah, the school during holidays, I don't know.
You can't take it out. It's a tourist town. We got to figure out something for the trailer parking and the tourists. It just otherwise, Aaron, they're going to be on right in front of your house.
Well, it's an easement. They're allowed to be there. I can't do anything about it.
Well, I know. And there are spots. It's just the big trailers, with the car, finding a spot is like, go to Murphy's or a lot of them go down to the beach and park down there and then walk. So that's what we've got so far.
Any other comments on page 13? Page 14. I had a couple of comments on page 14. Under the middle, there in the middle of the page, circa 2.5. My comment is, this is a little vague, and I'm not exactly sure how to deal with it, but it says, wherever appropriate or feasible, public facilities, including parking areas or facilities, shall be distributed throughout an area so as to mitigate against impacts, social and otherwise, or overcrowding or overuse by the public of any single area. I read that.
About why it shouldn't be.
Good point.
It's in there. It's in there so you can use the school and the church and the beach for parking. And the biggest one lately is the beachcomber. Tennis court. Okay.
Okay, I had just one other comment on page 14. The first comment is fairly straightforward, and that is in the middle of the last paragraph, public transit and regional transportation. In the middle there, it says there are only 6 southbound and 5 northbound stops per day on weekdays, etc. That may be true, but that varies depending upon certain circumstances. And COVID obviously was a big impact. My point is that if there's a way in which we can say that RTS operates, stops in Trinidad rather than being specific as to the exact number, because as soon as we put an exact number down there, it will change. The other thing I thought it might be worth mentioning is that we should maybe include the I forget the name of it, it's the Del Norte bus that comes down from Del Norte and stops in Trinidad. And that is one northbound way to get out of the Trinidad area via public transportation. Anything else on page 14? 15? 16? I'll make a comment, again, very similar to what I said before. Under program CIRC 3.3.3, encourage HTA to replace fossil fuel powered buses with electric buses. That's great, except they're buying hydrogen powered buses. So we might need just to include that just to make sure that we're clear. Anything else on page 16?
Well, it's probably 3.3.2 and 3.3.3 are probably other initiatives. They're more of those kind of inspirational statements of support or encourage.
You're saying 332 and 333?
Yeah.
Yes, it's probably true. And again, it's very difficult to encourage someone if it's a program, or if it's a program, how do you do that?
Exactly. Yeah.
And does it go to the beach?
I'm
I've
sorry?
never down traveling to the beach.
Conflict with the public, if you will, on this particular policy. So I'm not exactly sure what to do with it, but it is, the community has said that they don't want this. So I don't know what to tell you, but it's.
Yeah, I think that's still up for debate. It's interesting. The road safety plan talks about it as well, encouraging that they just adopted.
Good point. Yeah.
So Trevor, does the road safety plan have speed bumps in it?
I don't know if it talks about speed bumps specifically, but it definitely talks about traffic calming.
Well, and that's one of them. One of the way. I mean, I've been circling California for 6 years in a lot of different cities in big traffic intersections and flow areas. Speed bumps are there. Into the community center, that's works well. Okay.
Okay. Anything else on page 18? Let's see. Anything on 19? I did have a comment on the first paragraph of the energy subsection. And about midway in the paragraph, it says the county generates much of its own electricity using mostly natural gas and biomass fuels. Here again, this is a condition or a situation where currently, because the biomass plants are not operating, or at least one of them is not operating, that's not a true statement. And it's kind of, and I think what they're trying to say is that the county generates much of its electricity, but some of that electricity is actually generated outside of the county and purchased by the county or through RCEA. So this is a little not true, I guess is what I'm saying. I think it just needs a little bit of update, maybe from, in fact, if you look at the cap, it describes very clearly the different portions of our electrical purchases and where they come from. And I know biomass is way, way down on it. So it's not even close to being, one of the major major or primary methods of getting our electricity.
Okay, I will check that. I think I updated this based on RCEA's website recently, but the CAP would have better information.
Yeah, and I think I'm right when I say the biomass is way down there. And certainly as soon as the large facility in Central California comes online, the county will be buying like a bunch of electricity via a solar facility. And so that should be online within probably, I think, about 2 or 3 years. So by the time this gets put in place, that will be a major source of our electrical power. Anything else on page 19?
So you don't need to mention PG&E, just RCEA?
I mean, we could mention PG&E. They are the utility provider.
What I was referring to, Diane, is that we say, according to Redwood Coast Energy Authority, biomass, natural gas, and petroleum each comprise about a third of the total primary. I'm sorry, I looked at the wrong.
No, that's what
sentence.
Yeah, but PG&E is the big energy source too, so they should be mentioned.
That's fine. Yeah.
We're going to do the energy from someplace in the center of California when solar, gets bigger. But there's a lot of comments that it's not going to be that big. because of the construction of different of the panels. So somehow, I don't know, maybe back on page 19, the county generates PG and its own energy from RCEA.
I'm sorry, you broke up in the middle of your comment.
It's, we don't just get our energy from RCEA. Some are solar, some are PG&E, and then some are the RCEA.
That's true.
So that needs to be mentioned under energy. And I don't know where, Trevor. Maybe in that first paragraph that talks about energy.
I think later on somewhere we talk about PG&E and the fact that they have the substation in town. So maybe that would be a place where we could put it, or wherever it makes the most sense. Anything else on page 19? Page 20. '21. I'll just make a quick comment on the last paragraph before other energy initiatives, which is CERC 5.2.5. It says investigate micro hydro opportunities in Luffenholtz Creek. That is true, but I think that there also has been some interest in perhaps reviving some sort of micro hydro on Mill Creek as well. So I don't know whether we want to include that or not. But, there is that small, I guess you call it a dam on Mill Creek. And there has been some discussion about how to implement small hydro there. Any other comments on 21? Okay. Page 22. One comment at the last bullet on the page. It says emissions from high GWP gases increased 2.3%. I'm not sure what that GWP gases are.
I'm not sure either, but it's probably things like methane that, have more, they're equivalent to more than the carbon. But I will spell that out.
Thank you.
I just looked, it's global warming potential, according to the EPA.
Global warming potential. Okay.
Or it could be that, I should say. Not sure about the context of the document, but
Yeah, that would be it. Because there's a number of gases. Like I said, methane is sort of the big one that has a lot more warming potential.
Okay. Anything else on page 22? Page 23. Page 24. My same comment that under CERC 631, implement a public education for incentives for purchasing electrical, and I don't know if you want to throw in alternate fuel vehicles. Maybe someday we'll have hydrogen cars up here. I don't know.
did we also have somewhere, I feel like I saw it, encouraging the city to consider alternative fuel vehicles? Am I remembering that somewhere in this document? I don't see it in this section.
Yes, it's actually the second sentence in that program.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, it says, and to the extent feasible, replace existing city-owned vehicles with, it says here, electric vehicles.
There we go. Okay. Thank you. I was skimming for it and couldn't come across it.
Anything else on page 24? Page 25.
Just a global question kind of for the solid waste recycling policies. Can we work in food waste goals that were, recently enacted and or also green waste? I know we're kind of in that, we've got more time to figure this out because we're such a small community, but I think it's something we need to put in there at least as not a program, but a nice to have a goal or something.
Yeah, I talk about it in the last paragraph of the text, but yeah, It would be good to have a policy as well.
Are you talking under that goal, Circ 7, or where?
The paragraph above.
Yeah.
Further SV. Gotcha. Okay.
But that's just explaining it. That's not a policy.
Right. Yeah, we talk about yard waste, more beneficial ways, but just, I don't know, making that like a recommended focus.
Well, and Jennifer, Aaron, has been doing something with the zero waste. Maybe she's done some reading on that. We can figure out more of
Maybe
that.
she never talks to me, so.
Well, I'll talk to her.
Okay, let me know what you find out, please.
Okay.
Let's see, was there anything else on page 25? 26. Um, 27.
So wait a minute, on 26, it's all waste and recycling, but we can't do the rain catchment here, right, Trevor?
No, I think that's more in it could be in the water section later in this document or in the conservation element.
Okay.
Anything else on page 26? 27. Good.
Second paragraph under 2, stormwater. The intro sentence is an old and incomplete stormwater drainage system. I guess my question is, are there still, have we grabbed all the low-hanging fruit with this latest project? When it's done, does that need to be maybe retooled a little bit? Do we still have some opportunities? I'm sure we do, but what's left really?
Good question. I will try and find out more from GHD.
Okay.
How maybe they know where everything is now.
Right.
So, and the other thing that we need to do is we need to get the city workers to maintain the stormwater drains and the vegetation around it, because the one on Underwood and Hector, it's a mess. And it needs to be weeded and cleaned, and then they'd kind of mow around the ones on East, but I haven't checked the other ones out. But if we want the water to go down when we have our heavy storms, which are coming, as soon as they're done in Yosemite, we're getting them. They need to be maintained.
Good point.
Yeah, that was I know they had those discussions as part of the stormwater project. I don't know about the swales in particular, but I know there were definitely some entire drains, like actual drain inlets that were filled in on Edward Street. So,
yeah. Oh, they're filled with dirt, sand, and then grasses, and you have to get in there, clean them out. Okay. So I'll mention that to Kyle too.
One last comment on page 27 is under program CERC 7.3.1. I think that should say adopt an ordinance requiring 75% of lumber waste diversion to green waste facilities. We can divide it up, but we'll divert it too. Okay, just a check here. It is just at 8 o'clock. And so I want to understand what the pleasure is of the commission. Do you want to continue some more? Do you want to do what? We have about
I feel like we're
pages of this plus maps.
I could
well, the
use
maps.
a
Sorry, go
quick
ahead.
bathroom break if we're going to continue.
That sound like reasonable thing? Okay. All right.
good.
So let's come back. Can we do it 5 minutes or does it take longer? 5 minutes. Okay. 8, according to my computer, 8:07. See you then. Okay, I guess we're waiting for Diane. Well, why don't we start, and if Diane needs to catch up, we can help her with that. So let's see. We left off on page 27. Any other comments on 27? I think it's a good comment to update this whole section on the stormwater drainage system. And that also goes, I think, to the following page on 28, where we talk about the Rancheria's stormwater project as well. Any comments on page 28? I had one comment in the 1, 2, 3 paragraph, middle of the third paragraph. The line starts bioretention, infiltration, disconnected roof drains. I'm not sure what is that? I mean, I know what that is, but how does that fit in here?
Sorry, were you on page 28 or 29?
28.
So let's see, where are you?
Third paragraph, middle of the paragraph, that line says bioretention, infiltration, disconnected roof drains.
So in a lot of places, roof drains are connected to the stormwater system.
Oh, okay. All right. I was trying to figure out why we were disconnecting the downspouts. I got it. Okay.
But yeah, I'm not sure anybody.
Why you would put that into your septic?
Well, no, it would go into the stormwater system. I think like for the project, I still think of it as Marshall, but the house in front of the fourplex, I think they were required to actually connect their drains to the stormwater system so that they weren't getting that infiltration because of the potential bluff instability.
Okay. Diane,
but I don't know. I don't think it's not a big issue in Trinidad, so maybe it's just easier to remove it than try and explain it.
That's fine with me. I just didn't. I was just looking at the wrong connection, wrong point of connection, I should say.
So, Trevor, which one were you talking about?
Disconnected roof drains.
It's we just finished 27 and we're on page 28 now, Diane, and the middle of the third paragraph. And I raised a question. I just didn't know what a disconnected roof drain meant, but Trevor has explained it. But I think the agreement is we're just going to take it out. Okay. Anything else on page 28? Page 29.
Would this be the right document to put anything in about encouraging the city to use impervious or semi-permeable concrete in future projects? I mean, I think of all the sidewalk we just redid in front of City Hall as a missed opportunity to have some pass through. It just is now going into the drain, to the stormwater system. I don't know. Is that where this should live for the guiding principle, or?
Yeah, I think it could. I think, LID in Trinidad is kind of a delicate balance because of bluff stability and septic systems. But yeah, and it could go in both the section on sidewalks as well as this section.
So it could go into CERC 8.1.
Yeah,
That would be a good place to put your whatever, Aaron. You
No,
want
just-
to know what the word was you were using.
I think it's semi-permeable concrete. Is that the right terminology?
yeah, I think there's different levels of permeability. Yeah.
Okay, good comment. Page 29. Page 30. My comment was under transmission and utility facilities. We probably should update the comment made about the cellular installation on Trinidad Head. Last year when we approved that deconstruction plan. I don't know if it's complete yet, but by the time we're done here with this, it should be.
Well, they haven't trimmed the trees yet. I'm the tree trimmer expert. Besides,
Well, they have to take out the non-native cypress.
okay.
That was part of the plan.
Yeah, so I think they just got cleared last week for nesting birds. So they probably started construction this week, or they probably start construction this week.
Okay.
Or
anything else on page 30? Page 31. I did think that on CERC 9.3, where it says utility lines and cables should not obstruct the coastal views, that's all good. I just would suggest that we add in towers as well, or other structures, just something so that we don't wind up with a cell phone tower sitting on top of the bluff somewhere. And I think we had this conversation before, but I was just wondering whether or not CERC 9.4 should even, I thought that was somewhere else, and whether or not it has to be here.
Yeah, I don't know that it should be in here. I think we have a similar policy in the design, in the community design element.
It's not transmission utility.
Yeah.
I agree.
Anything else on page 30? 31. 32.
Just a question for septic. Is it worth spelling out in here something about when we do transfer of ownerships for the inspections and kind of the checkpoint on the OWTS permits? Or is that captured elsewhere in the city's policies, procedures kind of stuff, right? Because that's something we want to keep up on, right? That's been a gap over the years, right? And I don't know how to make that happen. I know.
Well, yeah. Yeah, I could look and see if we want to say more about the city's program.
Or is that kind of already, I was wondering, in CERC 10.1, continue to maintain and implement a regulatory management program? it's kind of inferred there.
It is, and I think by the time, like Richard has said, by the time we get this through, that program should be fully implemented, because I think there's going to be a push to do that over the next year or two.
Yes. So I've heard.
I imagine.
So who is keeping up? Is it Anton? Or
No, Jennifer is
good.
not, well, maybe eventually totally taking it over. But yeah, she's gonna do some outreach. So September is gonna be Septic Awareness Month for the city, and then start rolling out, getting everyone into the operating permit program.
Okay.
Okay, anything else on page 32? 33. $34. $35.
I had one comment on 35, the bullet point section. And my first attempt was to take the first bullet point and put it as the last bullet point, because most people tend to read one thing and kind of move on and skim the rest. And I think to just simply state that we can, there's 3 times what we need there, it seems a little bit not necessarily as the whole picture being painted. My next thought was to keep that, but add something at the end. It is where, the city has a water right that allows extraction of almost 3 times the current demand. However, it is important to note that, and then the rest of those come as a subsection indented the next bullet points. And then it says, here's all the reasons why, while that looks nice, it's not necessarily, just to kind of really differentiate it. That's not just, something that we can ignore because, hey, we've got, theoretically 3 times what we need.
Yeah, good point.
Anything else on page 35?
Yeah. In the last bullet on that page, climate change, drought, and upstream users all increase the risks and uncertainties regarding the ability of Buffenholz Creek to meet the city's needs. I don't know. Oh, and it needs to say in the future or now and in the future. It should be now and in the future because we're serious.
That certainly could be.
Right. Anything else on page 35? Page 36. I had a comment, or actually a question, on the 4th bullet there in the middle of the page. It says additional water use in the planning area may overburden soil capacity septic tanks and increase ground and surface water pollution. I just didn't quite understand what it meant, soil capacity septic tanks.
Yeah, there's something.
I thought that meant kind of that additional water use is going to kind of charge the system and decrease the efficiency, maybe the percolation, the filtration. Is that what that's trying to say?
Yeah. There's only so much capacity for treatment, so that in the soil. So that's what that's getting at. But there's a word missing or something in there.
Okay. Anything else?
Maybe septic tanks can just come out.
Yeah. But like soil filtration or soil percolation capacity, or,
Are you page 36 or 35 still?
36. We're on page 36.
maybe soil treatment capacity, and then in the set. So additional water use in the planning area may overburden soil treatment capacity and increase ground and surface water pollution via OWTS.
Sounds good. Anything else on page 36?
So what about the leaks? Is that mentioned anywhere, Trevor?
The what? The leaks?
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe so. That's a big issue.
Yeah, I didn't get through the whole water thing, and it's very important.
It's in the beginning of the last paragraph on page 35. They reference the water loss in the system as something that needs to be addressed. So it's definitely in there, Diane. There's a sentence. City Trinidad water loss analysis found that the water loss exceeds what normally expected.
So, Trevor, who is doing that? Is that guy that they hired from out of the areas? He doing the leaks and the water losses?
Apparently right now it's Gabe that's monitoring that.
Anton.
Now the water plant operator, would be aware of a major leak if they're having trouble, keeping the tanks full or, treating enough water. But there's a major leak going on right now.
I know. It's been going on, and is there one person there working? Is that?
I don't know. It's kind of a mess right now.
I can give a little more info from when I reported on the Water Advisory Committee.
So we need that new girl. Okay. Jamie. She has a T3 certification. We need to somehow get her into that system or over there to get working because she has knowledge, and somehow whoever's over there is not letting her.
Diane, you're absolutely right. Jamie is a T3 with, I think, 18 or 20 years worth of experience with a T2 water plant. And she's absolutely motivated to work on the leaks that have given us this 47 or 48% water loss this month. And it's actually worse this month than it was last month. And I believe that with the Coleman group that we've contracted, there are, I believe, 5 hires or 5 newer hires. I don't know all of them by name, but I believe the number's 5. And they're working at the plant various hours throughout the week.
There are 5 people there, Anton?
I believe so. Yeah. Phil is the one who is in charge. And then there's Lyle and another name starts with an S. I'm forgetting right now. And I think there's maybe 2 other people.
So do they come and go, or they're all there at the same time?
I don't know. And
we need to find out.
I don't see them coming into the office.
And we have her trained. She needs to get in there so we can get rid of them and get our own water.
The plan is, though, for Coleman to relinquish to the city employees sometime between July and August.
So do they plan to train them?
So, yes, that's the plan, to not only train them, but one of the individuals, the one I can't remember whose name starts with an S, he's going to take his T3 exam. And I think it's presumed that he will be passing that. That's my understanding.
And he's from out of the area?
And then he will become a city employee.
He's from Eureka, right? I think.
Oh, he's from Eureka. Yeah, we just can't, house these people from out of the area. We need to train our people and, have them do the work. Madrone was trying to help us with that. And I don't know. I just wanted to bring it up because we're talking about water. And then, Aaron, whatever you can do with the committee, and if they want some more volunteers, I'm in. Okay. I mean, to get movement. to get these guys trained and the locals to take it over. Thank you, Anton and Aaron.
Aaron, did you want to add anything there? I'm sorry.
No, I'll wait until we do the commissioner reports so we can finish through the document.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Just to close the loop on this issue. Circa 12.2.2 says that the second sentence says top priorities are repairing leaking lines and improving storage capacity of the system. So we've got at the treatment plant. So we've got the leaks covered there. Any other comments on page 37? I just had a real quick comment. It wasn't clear whether or not we should mention the Water Advisory Committee. I don't know if that's, I guess it is a permanent committee. So it might be useful to at least reference it somewhere in here. I'm not exactly sure where the appropriate point would be, but it might be nice just to have it there.
Well, 12 point, let's see, I think it's 12.3.1 talks about conservation. Periodically review and amend the water rate structure to ensure that it promotes water. Consult with the water committee. Maybe in there somewhere.
Yeah, it could also be part of 12.3.2, which is to maintain the water shortage contingency plan, because I know the committee works on that. I'm not hard over where it goes, but I just think it might be nice to reference it. Anything else on page 37? Okay, last but not least, page 38.
There's two circulation 12.8s that caught my eye. And then the second one just strikes me as a very interesting thing to have in this document. And I'm not sure that it's appropriate, I guess, is what I would say, in my opinion.
Does anybody want to open that can of worms?
Well, unfortunately, I wasn't at the council meeting last night, but I believe this issue did come up, and the city manager indicated that for the time being, the city was not going to be interested on tying into MWD's water line coming up, but that they would relook at this issue in 2 to 3 years.
Right.
Anyone who was at the meeting, please correct me. I just heard that secondhand, but that's where we're at right now.
I was not as well, and I guess that's my point. I don't know that an abject statement of opposition in the general plan is appropriate when, while we might have the door closed currently, we're going to at least look through the window in the door in a couple of years.
And that's what the city council voted on before Columbus left, that we would do the leaks, the tanks, Mill Creek, and just cut back with the drought, and then look at Humboldt Bay after the Rancheria got it. That was what happened months ago.
I think
this is kind of.
I'm sorry.
I don't necessarily agree with the policy, but it has definitely been reviewed by past planning commission and city council very specifically, and the city council has specifically said they want this policy in here as it is. Now, they haven't said that in the last maybe year or two, but they did review it, I think, when we were doing the water connection policy just before the drought contingency plan. So at least in the last 3 years, this is what the council said. And it doesn't shut the door. But it's been a controversial topic for.
Sure, it's come before the council 3 times that I'm aware of, at least, right?
Yeah, at least, yeah.
Well, and there are community members that bring it up at every meeting. So anyway, I guess we just didn't know if that had to stay in there, but it better stay in.
Well, it's in your hands right now. I don't know that I would completely remove it, but if you want to, because again, it has been specifically voted on by the council, but if you want to suggest some wording changes, that's perfectly acceptable.
I mean,
Well,
I think
I'm sorry, go ahead, Tristan.
the language is pretty strong, or maybe overly strong, the do not allow part, especially
Yes.
given the fact that we are theoretically going to revisit it again. And
Right. I mean, perhaps something carefully consider with great gravity.
Or only consider or something.
I mean, yeah, the rest of it, yeah.
And
If there is a compelling public necessity, otherwise avoid, I don't know. Just the do not allow is, I have a hard time with absolutes.
and another way of doing this is just as the two, Aaron and Tristan have said, is consider only, and we might say, let's delete the Humboldt Bay issue, and say, consider only, consider alternate water sources only, or unless there is a compelling public necessity, and only when enforceable measures, etc. I think that gets the message across, but not quite in the commandeering type of language that's there.
yeah, that sounds good.
I don't think you can change the word. It's already in the council minutes. And it was a huge discussion.
Well, what we can do is, they can address this again. They'll certainly have every opportunity to discuss it more.
Yeah, I think conditions have changed in the last 3 years. And our knowledge of the water system has certainly changed. So, and the vulnerabilities, I think, have become more apparent. So I think it's worth a discussion.
Okay. Anything else on page 38? Okay, moving on to the figures. And Trevor, just to confirm for me, there are 1, 2, 3 figures in this package?
Yeah, and figure 2 is actually from the land use element. It's not from this, but I wanted to show you what the new city limits looks like.
Understood. Okay. I just want to make sure that I didn't miss figures.
And so there's only the 2 figures, but I did talk about some other figures, and I think I'd like to get some input on whether you think they're valuable, and that's the typical street cross sections, the alternative transportation. There was a figure 13 with the light and utility poles, but I mean, if you have any thoughts on that, let me know. Yeah, so I guess those are the 2 figures that are sort of up in the air right now.
Okay.
And then I'm waiting on stormwater, but that's just going to map the existing system.
Okay.
The cross section one, what would that be utilized for? I mean, we kind of basically have, as I see it, really 2 styles of streets in town, either the big city ones or small rural. Is it worthwhile to have an example of each?
That's why, I don't know. Like I said, I did inquire to the city engineer what they think. I don't know that There are some street cross sections in the existing general plan. I don't know that they've ever been used. I mean, I think the language in here is pretty clear that the city doesn't want the side streets really developed with curbs and sidewalks and things like that. However, there has been discussion about traffic calming measures on those streets. So that would make doing a cross section kind of difficult. If there's potential for traffic calming, because that could really change cross sections. I don't really think there's a huge value to it, but I don't know. I don't have strong feelings.
And to be clear, you have not heard back from the city engineer yet.
Mm-hmm.
So like you said, kind of if that's a tool that makes their job easier, then I'd want to give it to them, I would think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I view those as more of an engineering type of thing, and the city engineer is only going to build streets or maintain streets per the normal engineering and regulatory requirements. So I'm not sure I see much merit personally from having that figure in here.
And relative to the power, the light pole and transmission line one, obviously there's still a little bit that needs to be undergrounded here. If it's not, we'll obviously still have that map available to us, that figure. Is there any benefit in your experience with, grant funding or, the exchanges that we can do with other entities and cities for, underground utilities to have that in the general plan, or not really?
No, I think, the map might come in handy for a grant application, but you have the policy in the general plan that says it should be undergrounded. And so I think that's all you need. You don't need a map showing where it would be undergrounded.
Okay.
All right. So let's see. Where do we go from here? I know that figure 2 is not for this section, but was there any comments on that or any additional information that we would require?
I guess, I do have one question on this map. I was going to bring it back to you with all the figures with the land use element, but the property, the big property along Mill Creek at the northeast corner of town, it's a long...
Which figure are you on, Trevor?
Figure 2.
Thank you.
So it's a long, big piece of property that's currently zoned open space. It used to be owned by the city, and there was a policy to keep it open space. Now it's privately held. I put it as SR and SE along the creek to be consistent with the other neighboring parcels, but I wanted to get the Planning Commission's input on whether that should just stay open space.
You're talking about that little green north-south finger that's sticking out.
It's actually a big parcel, and it goes along most of that northeast boundary. Well, it faces northwest. It goes along the creek, and then it has a big chunk. The whole northeast corner of the city is that parcel.
Do you know if that parcel has any deeded access associated with it?
I do not.
So your
and that would definitely be an issue for the development potential.
So your question to us is whether or not we leave it as open space. Is that what you're asking?
Yes. And maybe this is a question for later, because I was going to get you all the new figures and I can show you the existing zoning, and that might be better, easier to review it if you have the existing zoning in front of you as well.
Okay. Fair enough.
Are you aware of how that parcel is currently zoned? Or do you know?
Yeah, it's zoned open space.
Oh. So we would rezone it Or do we would rezone it here rather than just leaving it up to the landowner to petition?
Either way, I mean, it's whatever you think is most appropriate. I don't know that, again, that was the city-owned parcel that had the dam and the old water intake for the city on it. And it was zoned open space, I believe, probably to protect the creek. But then the city sold it. And as far as I know, the property owner doesn't have any plans to do anything with it. But it just seems like why have it open space? I don't know.
Okay. So I'm a little confused. We show 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 parcels in that section. Zoned open space. Is that correct?
Well, it's zone. Within 100 feet of the creek, it's SE. But yes, there are. There's one. Well, I mean, there's a bunch of parcels that include some SE.
Well, then maybe I'm looking at something different, or not looking at the right
section of Mill Creek.
Yeah.
Because there's kind of that section up to the top right. Is that where you're looking right now, Richard?
No.
Or are you looking down closer to the
I can't share a screen at this point, but I'm looking at this part right here. Oops, that's not in focus.
Oh, blurry.
I'm sorry, that's not going to work.
above the blue and gold residential there at the end of Underwood, right?
It's this one.
It's that
No,
one. Oh,
I
okay.
thought, well, that's special environment.
Yeah.
Yes. It's currently zoned open space, but all the parcels around it are zoned SR. I added the SE within 100 feet of the creek and then made it SR with the rest of the parcels.
I see. I was looking at the wrong spot. Okay.
Okay. And this figure 2 is a draft of what you're kind of proposing
Yes.
versus what it is. Okay. All right.
And I think it would be helpful if you had the existing in front of you.
And what's the nearest road, Trevor?
Barry.
Okay.
Well, then I would say, yeah, if you don't need this right now, let's get those 2 figures in front of us and tackle this next time would be my suggestion.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. Anything on figure 11 that we would like to discuss?
One of the streets is not named. Is it Hector? Between Parker and Edwards?
Yes.
Yeah, in front of the church there.
That one doesn't have.
And Parker's somewhat mislabeled there as well.
Right.
Right. And then on Van Wyck and Galindo, you can't even see the street names because they're covered by a tall tree. You can see the INDO. So I'm going to take them down there and have them cut it. I've talked about this for about a year now. All right. I'm the tree. And
then, I mean, if we're being specific, Azalea also maybe get that in there with a little line down to it that, Pacific, between Pacific and Edwards there.
So,
I guess do we need to include all the streets outside the city limits that are like the local streets, or is like all those ones down off Scenic Drive around the casino and whatnot?
No, I mean, it's within the city's planning area, but that's on the Rancheria. So no, I don't know. I don't think we should.
So then it just talking it out, then we would be deleting then Quarry Road as well? Or is there
I think-
enough value in having those just as reference for somebody looking at this document? You know what I mean? I don't know if there's,
Yeah, maybe they're worth leaving.
Well, clearly one that's left off is Langford.
Oh, yeah, good point.
So we just have to be consistent, I guess, of what we're doing.
Yeah, because Quarry and, Langford are main transportation routes for homes.
Yes. Yeah.
And frontage isn't labeled either.
Oh, nor is West Haven, I guess, in that thing.
Trevor, you better have a talk with SHN. Just kidding.
maybe you know somebody there.
Get it from the computer and they didn't run around the city like I like them to do.
Well, they couldn't see him because of the trees, Diane, so they didn't know what to label them.
I'm coming tomorrow.
So we show trails on this figure. Do we want to show, at one time, I think we had something that showed benches and scenic lookouts?
Yes, and so we had the recreation map used to have the benches and trail markers. Coastal Commission staff suggested that we limit the amount of information on the certified map. So it's pretty much just trails and vista points now. That's figure 10 in the conservation element.
Okay, so it still exists. Right.
But I do think that with the trails policy, and I think maybe the trails committee is going to be picking that up again, they should have a more detailed trails map. But I was also thinking for a figure 12, instead of the street cross sections, it would be alternative transportation that would show things like the bus stops, the bike routes, the benches, things like that on a separate map.
Okay, that's fine. Wherever it winds up, if it makes sense to put it there, that's great. I just didn't want to lose that information.
I mean, it could be on this map if it's not too busy.
I am not, as I don't have a real feeling one way or the other. Again, maybe, it might be your call. I don't care, but just as long as we don't lose that.
Yeah.
For what it's worth, my preference would probably be less data on any single map because it can just cause confusions.
Good point. Sure.
And the trails map should have the bike racks and the benches, not the transportation and parking map.
Well, it is part of, it is, multimodal transportation.
You can make a case either way.
Yeah.
Certainly when you talk about parking, you're talking about cars, but if you have bike racks, you're talking about parking a bike. So, you could include the, bike routes and racks, et cetera, on this one and get away with it. But Aaron has a good point. You don't want it to be too busy that you lose the message. So from my perspective, I just want to make sure that we capture all of this someplace in some form or fashion. So,
okay. I basically have to create the alternative transportation map. Well, no, because we have benches, we have bike racks in there. So it's really the bus stops and bike routes I think I need to add to a map because we already have those other things in the GIS. So I can just see how busy that's going to be and because I am going to take parking off this map.
oh, okay.
I don't think it's not complete. It would be difficult to do comprehensive parking. We're going to have some parking figures from our parking study. So I'm just going to take parking off this map.
Okay. Any other comments on figure 11?
They are nice maps, Trevor.
Yes, yes, we have.
These are really nice.
We have some really great maps. Yeah.
Okay, figure 5, the water service area. I guess my one comment would be is now that we have the water line going to CAL FIRE up Patrick's Point, should we include that?
Yep.
Well, except though that is an individual connection. So we don't show individual connections on this map. And that is considered an individual connection. It's not a water line that can be connected to.
Right. Okay, that makes sense.
Is it, I mean, all the little dots on who has water service, is that complete there, or does really no one down on the Rancheria have water service?
That's a good point. The entire Rancheria has city water service.
Okay. I don't know if we need dots or you know what I mean?
That's a good, yeah, they're not all, I think one of the issues is they're not all individually metered. But I think that's a good point. I think they should, I mean, it does note on the legend, public water service, but that's not clear.
Maybe just a little, down in Trinidad Bay, there a little explanation box with a line going into the, dark gray section, clarifying.
Yeah. Or I just put dots on all of them because they do all have city water.
Yeah, that works.
Anything else on this map? I'm sorry, on this figure?
I guess where would I find a description of the various service sub areas, or there isn't really a description of them?
There's not, and I've thought about whether do we include the sub areas on this map. I do mention them in the text of the general plan, but I don't really describe them. So there was a water demand assessment. It should be described in the text in there. It was part of GHD did a bunch of studies on the water system, and I did a water demand assessment, and I broke the service area up into chunks that might actually be annexed in the future, and calculated water demand for each of them so that we could look at what the demand would be from each of these areas so that we could get a better handle on whether the service area was realistic or not. So yeah, I'm open to suggestions on whether that should be divided out on this map or not, or maybe better explained in the text. I'm not sure.
Well,
I don't know. I guess I would, if I was living in one of these, various sub areas, I'd wonder, what that actually means to be in sub area D2 or something, if that actually means anything. But I guess if it's just sort of a theoretical assessment of which parts of the greater area might be annexed, then I guess that could just be what it is, or that could be the explanation of what they are.
Yeah. And I think it's probably important to differentiate area C, because that area is not currently served.
Mm-hmm.
Well, at minimum, maybe we should at least reference the document where this comes from. And then that's a tie in, and you go find the document, and that'll give you all the information that you need.
Or
Yeah,
you
I
can
guess.
go Scenic Drive, West Haven Avenue, Patrick's Point, a couple of the main thoroughfares, and not name the sections. Oh,
I'll re-look at the text and see how much the sub areas are discussed, and you guys can do the same. And if you have any thoughts, feel free to email me later as to whether we should change the text or change the map.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, and then a sort of maybe a little unrelated. The sub area C it's shown as being within the water service area on the map, but I guess we don't serve that area.
Yeah. So, and that is, it's an interesting area. I don't know the whole history of it. It's currently in the city's water service area. So currently this is almost, it almost follows the current water service area, but if you take a line down from E straight down to the coast, that entire area along Scenic Drive is also included, but that's never going to be annexed by the city because it's not currently served. So that really shouldn't be in the water service area, but there's a hydrant up there close to the rancheria. There is a water line that goes through that area. So I'm going to add that to the water service area.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I believe, I don't know if the Coastal Commission required the city to include that area, or if the city wanted to include that area C, but that's where it has coastal recreation, commercial recreation zone parcels, which are
Visitor services too.
Huh?
Is it visitor services or housing lodging? Is that also?
Yeah, so it's got that zoning that's a priority use under the Coastal Act, and so the Coastal Commission wants us to serve that area before anything else. But the water demand there is huge. We can't service that area. But on the other hand, if the city was going to annex an area, that's the area that has huge tax revenue potential, where the residential areas would be more of a cost as opposed to a revenue. So there are advantages to the city of serving it, and it would be interesting to look at some hybrid systems, because those places have their own water systems. But like Emerald Forest, for example, they don't. So some of these places have to truck water in the summer, and their systems aren't adequate through the whole year. So that's an area that, and I've talked to the Coastal Commission and said we don't have the capacity to serve that area, the whole area. So what do we do? And they would be amenable to us shrinking that a little bit, as long as we shrink other areas of the service area, which we have removed that Scenic Drive area. So we could shrink that area potentially. You might take a look at the water demand assessment and see, again, the relative, and I've even looked at it parcel by parcel. I don't know if that's in the water demand assessment, but I do have some information parcel by parcel, what the demand up there would be. So it might be interesting to take a closer look at that.
Has there been any theoretical discussion with the rancheria, pursuing the Humboldt Bay water? Do we know, is their intent to then no longer have city water service to the rest of the rancheria, or do we not even know what the long term?
I would guess
that just popped into my head.
I would guess so. I mean, why would they want to pay for city water if they can get what
Right.
they need from Humboldt Bay? So I would guess so.
Okay.
But I mean, there's city water infrastructure that already goes through there, and some of that infrastructure is important because it forms these loops
Right.
that are important for the system.
Yeah.
So I don't know exactly how that all would work, and they're still pursuing their wells as an alternative source. So they might want to keep the city as a backup source. I don't know exactly.
So Trevor, where is the water demand assessment?
I believe there's a section on the city's website. It's on the downloadable documents page for water, and all the water reports should
Did we
be.
get it when we were doing the water contingency plan? Did we get it then?
Yeah.
Okay, so back a couple year and a half, maybe two almost. Yeah.
Yeah, I think maybe 2019 is when we did those
Okay.
reports.
All right, anything else on this figure 5? Okay, by rights, at this point, I should ask for public comment, and I will do that. Great.
Sherry still with us. I thought I saw.
Yes, Sherry.
I am still here and I applaud your work. It is hard work to go through these documents as you do. And I just appreciate that. And I know you don't hear that very often, but I do appreciate you going through all these documents. They're comprehensive and there's a lot to think about when you go through these. Just a couple of comments, and I don't know if I saw them because it's been a very long night listening to your comment. But one of the things I don't know if I saw clearly was the importance of having electric cars be a priority. And sometime being able to have more electric car charging stations in the city, and thinking about where those areas are, even down at the harbor. We have a lot of people down there, and they're there visiting, eating, fishing, whatever. So I just think that emphasizing that would be really good to use this opportunity. The second thing, just quickly, is on the second map, which I'm not sure. I think it's figure 11, I think, where you have the different roads that are green, yellow, primary connectors, secondary connectors, and then local on those roads. I see the Van Wyck as a green local, and I do not think that's a road any longer. I think that the city's been working very hard with Indigenous groups to have that closed off, and mainly more of considering it being closed. So I don't know if that should be actually taken off of this map. And maybe,
sorry.
And that might be wrong. I might be reading it wrong, Trevor.
No, I actually, when we were discussing this, I circled the section that's trail, that's not road. That shouldn't be marked as a road.
Okay. And then my third comment is more of a private comment. And I'm going to go to, we can find the map. I don't know what map it is, but I have property on View Avenue. That and then there's that alley behind View. There's that alley between View and Ocean. And so sometimes I park there, and then take care of my property on View Avenue. And then I come out onto East Avenue and then go back on View. And this is just as a personal comment. There is a dumpster that's right there by Diane, it's kind of by your house, and I think it's Cox's house, or they own that house. I don't know if they still do or not. But that dumpster is kind of in the road sometimes. And when there's cars coming, especially in the summertime, come around View into East, and then I just actually have to stop so I don't hit the dumpster. So I don't know if there's some way that dumpsters throughout the whole city can be certain feet away from the road. Because, we got, like you said, these trailers, various different tourisms that coming through. The roads are not that wide, and there's no sidewalks, and there's no, and so sometimes those dumpsters, can impede into the road. And that's just a personal, because I go down my alley, I work on my property, I take east to go back down to View, and I often have to just oh man, I just want to get out, push that dumpster a little bit more.
Well, do that. Get out and push it. And it's on Larry's property. It's on my neighbor Larry's property. It's owned by Dan and Dorothy Cox.
Yeah.
They use it. Their family members use it. But that whole area is very, very aggravating to me because of the skyscraper tree. That property is owned by Larry, by Rose, and by the city. So you might even mention something to Eli, walk him over there and say, look, this dumpster's out all the time, and the city does not maintain that street. When we have windstorms, branches are everywhere. Neither property owner take care of it. Sometimes I pick up the branches and put them in the dumpster. But, that you should file a city concern complaint on that.
I just think generally, if you're talking about planning and roads,
It's out in the road.
it could be, having some condition in this policy or ordinance that says dumpsters or things like that need to be, and I think that's going to be hard to do because you have the Humboldt Sanitation that pulls their dumpsters on, you have to put them on the road. I think this is a little different situation. That's just a personal thing. I just wanted to share that has always been a little area that I just think that could be.
It might be Humboldt Sanitation that wants it out there so they can get it at 6 a.m. on Friday.
Yeah.
Because that's when
That's what I was going to ask, Sherry. Have you noticed a pattern of any kind surrounding, trash day on Fridays, or is it just kind of always canted out there? Because trust me, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, no, I just have property on View, and I rent them, long-term rentals, and have good family members that live there, and just been very happy, working with the city on my properties. And you probably all know that I grew up in Trinidad, and Diane and my kids all went to soccer and played many soccer games together. So I definitely know these streets well, and it certainly has grown. Growth has been really, over the last 20 years particularly, has really skyrocketed. But thank you for your work, and thank you for, the time and effort that you commit to the city of Trinidad. So thank you for letting me speak a few minutes of your time.
Thank you for the encouragement. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Sherry.
Okay, moving on. Next agenda item is commissioner reports.
I just have a little bit more from the WAC. It sounds the Water Advisory Committee, most of that was covered already. But in specifics, just to clarify, we're kind of pushing Eli to have as a timeline. July is when the testing's supposed to happen for our folks. It's a little basically July. They're supposed to take their exams, T3 to T2 exam, and then subsequent to that, presuming that they pass, which is they're anticipating that's going to happen, then the transition is going to start to take place with a target date. I forget what Eli said, but said reasonably maybe August-ish, but they have to kind of map it out. So I challenged him to come back to the next Water Advisory Committee meeting with a timeline for us. So hopefully we'll have that for you. And then there's some grant money that I believe it was grant money. We have money left over for a leak detection specialist that's coming in July, early July, to look for leaks in the distribution system. And he also talked about the existing leaks that we're aware of that are a priority to get fixed. So that's ongoing. That's the only other things I just wanted to touch on from that.
Thank you. Any other reports? All right, moving on to staff report.
I don't know that I have any updates since the last meeting, other than I will mention, so you might hear from some Underwood residents. I gave them your city email addresses. Diane, maybe we can talk about an alternate contact for you. So there's a project on the south side of Underwood. It's going to add a second story, and so it's going to block views. And so, you know, I told the applicants to go talk to the neighbors, and I'm not sure it went over real well. But so you might be hearing from them because they are going to invite you over to see what the impacts are going to be. That is fine for you individually to go do that. You just need to disclose any ex parte communication when we get to the hearing. So just disclose what you did and who you talked to and what you talked about. You know, be careful to not bias yourself. So you don't want to make up your minds before the hearing and before you have all the information. But I think it would be valuable to do that and see, because you have to determine, is it significant view blockage? So I think it would be valuable, and just, you know, there shouldn't be, you know, it should be individually. I suppose two of you at a time could go somewhere, but really it should be individually so that you're not violating the Brown Act. So just wanted to mention that, and that unless the applicants decide to change their design, that'll come to you next month.
And do you think we'll be hearing from the applicant and the neighbors, or a combination thereof, or for site visits?
It was the neighbors that asked for your contact information.
Okay, all right. I was just curious who to look for in my emails. Thank you.
We need to see the plan before. I don't want to go over there and try to see the plan.
The plans are available at City Hall.
Okay.
And you'll get them in your packet, you know, before the meeting, and they'll have to put up the story polls before the meeting.
Okay.
Okay, very good. Anything else?
Nope, not for me.
Any updates or any further discussion you'd like to have on future agenda items?
Maybe I missed it at the beginning of the meeting, or maybe you didn't talk about it, but potentially meeting in person next month. I guess the city council met in person yesterday, and I don't know if I guess nobody went, but
Nobody went.
well, none of us went, excuse me.
Right.
Oh, okay. I have not heard how that went. So yes, so I think if that went well, then yeah, I think we could go back to in-person meetings if you guys want to do that. Actually, I think at the last meeting, did you ask for that to be an agenda item? Do you want to discuss that and decide as a group how to move forward with that?
Yeah, that is what happened last month.
Yeah, I apologize. I don't know if it didn't make it in the minutes or what, but I didn't include that as an agenda item, and I should have.
So did the city council decide, or did the county and Eli decide for the council?
City council decides, right?
Yeah, although I think it's, well, and you know, I sort of wanted to also see how the council's meeting went last night, so I didn't have that information to give you either. But yeah, I'll find out some more information about how it went, who decides, because I think that there'll continue to be some sort of hybrid system. It won't be all in person. So
Anton knows how it went. He can tell you if he's still on. Yeah.
I'm still here. It went possibly more smoothly than expected, but it was kind of clunky for our first transition to the hybrid meetings. But it is a possibility if the Planning Commission does want to have the in-person or hybrid meetings. That is, I guess, something that we could potentially do.
So I talked to Anton today about it, and people in the past always have to clean up, and Richard and I used to put chairs away. And so it is a big deal, to be a long time in that meeting, Tristan. We just all have to, if we're going to do that, we have to kind of help put it away at night. And normally they set it up during their office hours, but it's a lot of cords and microphones, and I think it's good, to go back, but there were a few glitches, I guess, with the technical hybrid stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I talked to Eli and Gabe about it on Monday, and they had suggested that we just skip the hybrid option, and that way they don't have to have all the staff there to run all the tech support, I guess. But I don't know that's how it used to be,
Yeah.
but I think, the public has gotten used to hybrids. I think you get more public participation, not that you get a lot of public participation anyway, but I think you get more public participation with the hybrid meetings. And I think the state, I think they're also considering some legislation to require the continuation of hybrid meetings.
And they're giving us money to pay, right? Pay for it. Pay for a tech staff. Yeah.
So, yeah, and Aaron, because so that's the thing with the in-person meetings is under the current requirements, or if they go back to where they were, Aaron wouldn't be able to participate when he's out of town.
Well, my understanding is there are workarounds to that.
There are workarounds.
Our board of directors down there, it has to be publicly. We would have to post, I'm going to be at this location, and if you want to come to the meeting, you can. I would have to make, that's my kind of the workaround.
Yes, but can people come into the fire station and watch?
That would be something I'll need to pursue with the fire district, because our visitation policy is obviously different with COVID in place, right? And COVID concerns a little bit down.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm definitely interested in pursuing in-person meetings, and I also can work to arrange to be home for meetings. I understood that when I took this, right? I don't know. I would kind of say, let the city council iron out the kinks, and that way the city staff is only trying to do so many iterations and so many variables, and then once they have a proven system, or a reason to say, yeah, this isn't going to work for us here in Trinidad for whatever reason, because I know Gabe had a lot of concerns over the technology piece and sound quality and whatnot. I don't know. That would just, but ultimately, I feel like in previous discussion, the city council was making the call on all the meetings, what their status was. Is that not the case? I feel like that's how it was, and I thought they were going to try them and then slowly walk it out to the other meetings. But I might be remembering that wrong.
I don't know. I need to get more information on that. And I will do that.
Okay, so from what I just heard, we cannot make a decision tonight because it wasn't on the agenda. But further information is required, and that we will take it up as a decision for next month. Is that what I'm hearing?
Or at least an agenda item for discussion, right?
Yeah.
Certainly.
And I don't know that it has to be that this kind of decision has to be agendized. for you to make a decision? I mean,
Well, I guess the point is, I want to clarify, we're not making a decision tonight. We are going to get some more information. Is that what I heard?
yeah, I don't think we can, yeah. And
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
Is there a consensus that you do want to go back to in-person meetings?
I think the state is talking about it. I had a discussion with Eli about it months ago, and it has to be okayed by the state and then, the city manager and the council, and then we can make our choice. It was like layered before we could do it. Yeah, I'm not going to make a discussion. I want to go through the proper.
Okay.
Make sure help.
Breaking up, Diane.
What was that?
You broke up. Sorry again.
Oh, yeah. I just think we need to talk to Eli and make sure the state says we can, do this.
All right. Well, it sounds like we have a little bit of homework to do before we can
Make a decision.
But yeah, I certainly, I think we need to figure out what we're doing fairly quickly here. I understand that.
And I just had one other agenda item to put on there, or just a discussion, because this is a very lengthy meeting tonight, but I'd like us to just kind of test the waters for the concept of workshops occasionally for us to process through stuff, as opposed to having an actionable meeting where, yes, I know it's another commitment, but it's a little bit less formal and we can have some more discussion to kind of get through some of this stuff and come back with to the meeting with a cleaner thing to actually act on. That was all.
Yes, we have done that before when we're working through the general plan, and they, like, in between, we'll do it in between the monthly meetings, and they work well.
Mm-hmm. They're very effective.
And then I want to mention that the rainwater catchment system was developed at Humboldt State. I don't know if you saw a picture of it, but it was huge. And so there is an outlet right there to investigate. And I was going to talk to Cheryl Kelly about that, and then Steve Madrone, because they just built a huge one. I don't know how many gallons, but big. And we need to think about that. We've been talking about that with Steve Madrone for a couple of years. And, now's the time to investigate that further. Thank you.
More to come on that, possibly at the horse pasture too. Okay, that brings us to the end of our agenda. Any final comments? Okay, great. Well, thank you all for hanging in there. Long meeting, and but we got a lot done tonight, and hopefully staff now has plenty to do. So
Always.
Thank you. Thank you, John.
I'll call this meeting adjourned.
Hey, everybody.
Right. Thanks. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Are